Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari. Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari. Yashodanandana Praja Janaranjana. Yashodanandana Praja Janaranjana. Jamuna Thira Panachari. Jamuna Thira Panachari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari. Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari. Yashodanandana Praja Janaranjana. Yashodanandana Praja Janaranjana. Jamuna Thira Panachari. Jamuna Thira Panachari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jayom Vishnu Bhat Paramhansa Parivrajagacharya Astho Tadasutta Sri Srimad A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. ISKCON Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jayom Vishnu Bhat Paramhansa Parivrajagacharya Astho Tadasutta Sri Srimad Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Prabhupada Ki Jai. Ananti Koti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Prem se kaho Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai. Sri Sri Radha Krishna Gopa Gopinath Sham Kund Radha Kund Giri Govardhan Ki Jai. Shri Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai. Sri Navadvip Mayapur Dham Ki Jai. Sri Jagannath Puri Dham Ki Jai. Ganga Mai Ki Jai. Yamuna Mai Ki Jai. Bhakti Devi Ki Jai. Tulasi Devi Ki Jai. Samaveda Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai. Gaura Premanandi Shri Shri Radha Kalachanji Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Sri Guru and Sri Gauranga. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Amuni Panchasthanani Yadharma Prabhavakatihi Otareyena Tathani Nyavasatthani Deshakrit Amuni Panchasthanani Yadharma Prabhavakalihi Otareyena Tathani Nyavasatthani Deshakrit Amuni Panchasthanani Yadharma Prabhavakali Otareyena Tathani Nyavasatthani Deshakrit Amuni. All those. Pancha. 5. Sthanani. Places. He. Certainly. Adharma. Irreligious principles. Pravaha. Encouraging. Kali. The age of Kali. Otareyena. By the son of Uttara. Dattani. Delivered. Nyavasa. Dwelt. Tat. By him. Nideshakrit. Directed. Sutta Goswami said, Maharaj Parikshit, thus being petitioned by the personality of Kali, gave him permission to reside in places where gambling, drinking, prostitution, and animal slaughter were performed. The personality of God, the personality of Kali, asked for something more. And because of his begging, the king gave him permission to live where there is gold. Because wherever there is gold, there is also falsity, intoxication, lust, envy, and enmity. Today's verse that we're speaking, the translation. Thus the personality of Kali, by the direction of Maharaj Parikshit, the son of Uttara, was allowed to live in those 5 places. Purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. Thus, the age of Kali began with gold standardization, and therefore falsity, intoxication, animal slaughter, and prostitution are rampant all over the world. And the saner section is eager to drive out corruption. The counteracting process is suggested above, and everyone can take advantage of this selection. Om Ajnantimirandasya Gyananjanachalakaya Chakshurumilitam Jena Tasmai Sri Gurave Namah Sri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Tadati Svapadantika Vandeham Sri Guru Sri Jatapadakamalam Sri Gurun Vaishnavanscha Sri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahakana Raghunatam Pitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Siddham Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padam Sahakana Raghunatam Pitam Scha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dina Bandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostate Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vishvanu Sute Devi Pranamami Haripriye Manchakalpatarubhyascha Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaura Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare Hare Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Nityanamine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharane Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Pastatati Swami. Hare Krishna. Thank you for assembling at Radha Kalachandji's auspicious temple today. Hare Krishna. We are reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 1, Chapter 17, entitled Punishment and Reward of Kali. Text number 40. The Srimad Bhagavatam which Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu declared the Amala Puranam, the purest, spotless of all Puranas, the very essence of all Vedic knowledge, Dharma Prodita Kaitavatra. The Vedic literatures are compared to Nikama Kalpataro Kalitam Palam, to a desire tree, where whatever one's aspirations in life may be, there is a process to approach and achieve it, while simultaneously getting directions for the purification of the heart, gradually leading one to the ultimate destination of Prema Pumartha Mahan, ecstatic love for Krishna. The Bhagavad Gita, Krishna tells that people generally worship demigods to fulfill their material aspirations. And in truth, the demigods are empowered by the Supreme God to do so. Hare Krishna Giriraj Swami Maharaj, Jananivas pranams to you. And when Krishna teaches Sarva Dharman Parityasya Mamekam Sharanam Vraja Aham Tvam Sarva Papibhya Mokshayishamimasa. The conclusion of all Vedic knowledge is ultimately to surrender to the Supreme Godhead. Vedaishta Sarvyaraham Eva Vedyo Vedanta Krit Veda Vedeva Chaham. Krishna is the supreme authority of all Vedic knowledge. Veda is not only the Vedic literatures, but Veda is knowledge. He is the source of everything. Janmadya Shayata. And all knowledge is coming from him. his expansion of Vyasadeva, has compiled and written the Vedic literatures. In all true scriptures, throughout the creation, in all the lands, are various, according to time and place, revelations of what the Lord has presented in the Vedic literature. Out of Krishna's causeless mercy, he gives even the most diverted, distracted, and sinful people an opportunity to make progress out of suffering and into his eternal loving service. Therefore, in various Puranas, there is prominence of worshipping various demigods to achieve material purposes. There are Vedic literatures that deal with medicine, healing, with astrology and astronomy, with martial arts and military expertise. There are Vedic literatures that deal with, that give prominence to philosophy, study of the science of material energy, the impersonal aspect of the Supreme. So practically anything we want, if we want children, husband, wife, money, power, supernatural yogic siddhis, if we want to look nicer, want to live longer, the Vedic literatures give formulas of how to do so. Why? Krishna tells in Gita, Abrahma bhavana loka punaravarthanorjama mamupayita tukondya punarjanmana vidyate. From the highest planet of Brahmaloka. And Brahma and all the residents of Brahmaloka, they have all these things. Way beyond we can even imagine. They're healthy, they're strong, they're beautiful, their families are so nice, they have limitless amounts of money, they're living with Lord Brahma. He's the father of all beings within the universe. They're under his leadership. Can you imagine living in Brahmaloka? Nobody ever pollutes the environment there. You don't have to stand in line for anything. It's beyond the heavenly planets. Indraloka is filled with unbelievable physical opulences. But Brahmaloka is multiplied by millions of times, plus everyone is extremely pious and following the path of God realization. But yet Krishna, who's the creator of the universe, tells even Brahmaloka and everything below, they're places of suffering. Janma mrityu jara vyadi dukkha dosana darshanam. Because ultimately death is inevitable. And the psychology of all species of life as we see things relevant to the body we're in. A little ant, the insect ant, not your mother's sister. A little ant. They really can't conceive our lifespan. They see everything relative to their lifespan. And however long an ant lives, if they can live that long, it's just like amazing. Such an old ant. You know, if an ant doesn't get crushed but lives a long life, the other ants are probably thinking, oh, lived such a nice long life. But for us, that's nothing. And for the demigods, we're less than ants. How long they live. In Brahmaloka, Brahma lives 311 trillion of our years. That's an inconceivable number. But yet, it really doesn't seem much more relative to being a demigod. Doesn't seem that much more than our 100 years is. So Krishna is explaining, however much you enjoy, however successful, whatever the nice environment you create, it's still a place of suffering where death comes. So although Krishna is giving us the opportunity to achieve all of these things, through the Vedic literature, he's doing it in such a way that we can gradually have faith in the supremacy of God, in higher power. And the more we understand that, the more we become blessed to come to the platform of Sarva Dharman Parityajya Mamekam Sharanam Vraja. In Srimad Bhagavatam, which is the crest jewel of all Vedic literatures, all of these sub-religious principles, all spiritual paths that do not lead to unmotivated, uninterrupted, ecstatic love for Krishna are dismissed. There's no place for any of these in the Srimad Bhagavatam. Narada Muni, he came to visit Vyasadeva at Badarikashram. And Vyasadeva, who's the literary incarnation of Lord Narayan. Have any of you been to Badarikashram? Well, there's the Adi Badri and there's the lower Badri. We can go to the lower Badri. That's where the Badrinath deity is. But way up above that, humans can't get there. It's in the highest slopes of the Himalayas, highest peaks of the Himalayas. And it's a transcendental abode where Vyasadeva lives. That's the place where Madhvacharya, he wanted to have darshan of Vyasadeva, and he became a disciple of Vyasadeva. And when he was walking there, some of his disciples were trying to follow behind him. But Madhvacharya is an avatar of Vayu, so he could go places nobody else can go. So he and his disciples, they're They're from Udupi, which is a tropical part of South India. And he's taking them to the places that are every day of the year totally covered with snow. And to climb those mountains and to trudge through the depth of the snow and the cold weather. They were like falling and standing and falling, and Madhvacharya was just enthusiastically going to have darshan of his guru. When he looked back and saw the pathetic state of his disciples, he smiled. And he went like this. And all of a sudden, just by going like that, they mystically went back to the Badrinath temple. They were sitting there, where's our Guru Maharaj? And he went to visit Vyasadeva. So there's a cave we can still go to today, the Vyas Gufa. And there's this Saraswati River. And Vyasadeva, after writing the 4 Vedas, the Rig Veda, Yajur Veda, Sama Veda, Atharva Veda, he wrote the 108 Upanishads. He wrote the Puranas, the Mahabharata, Samhitas, Itihastas. He wrote the Vedanta Sutra. Bhagavad Gita, of course, is included in the Mahabharata. He wrote all these literatures. Why? Because he is paradukha dukhi. He's feeling for the sufferings of others, and he's feeling the happiness of others. And the standard of his success is the happiness of all beings. So he's writing these Vedic literatures out of deep and profound compassion, especially for humanity, for those who could read, discuss, and follow the Vedas. Durlabha manava janma lobhya samsare. The human life is so rare. Vyasadeva saying among all the species of life that this human life gives us the opportunity to be free from this apparently endless cycle of adhyatmaka, adhidaivaka, adhibhautika, of suffering, disappointment, heartbreak, corruption, and death. So after giving all these Vedic literatures, the most monumental literary presentation in the history of creation, he's feeling unhappy in his heart. And Narada Muni came and told, it is because you have not yet given that Vedic literature that exclusively propounds the unmotivated, uninterrupted, loving service of the Lord, bhakti, prema bhakti. And you have not yet described in that context the beautiful pastimes of Krishna. With that instruction, he compiled Srimad Bhagavatam. And he trained his son, Sukadev Goswami, in this knowledge. So to present this knowledge to the world, Krishna orchestrated a most wonderful setting to emphasize how the Srimad Bhagavatam must be heard. Just as Krishna planned Arjuna's confusion, and this is all important. It is described by our acharyas that to understand the 10th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, we must first begin with the first verse of the first chapter. Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Prabhupada. There is a famous story where he was in a very holy place, and because he was so well known as a great self-realized devotee of Radha and Krishna, so many people came because he was going to speak from Srimad Bhagavatam. And everybody was sure he was going to speak from the 10th canto, perhaps the Rasa Lila. So that everyone gathered. And he spoke every day from the first verse of the first canto. Why? When Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur first met our beloved Guru Maharaj, Srila Prabhupada, he gave him the message to take the teachings of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to the Western world. What are the teachings of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu? Radha Bhavaduti Suvalitam Nomi Krishna Swarupam. Lord Chaitanya is Krishna, who is experiencing the Mahabhav, the love of Sri Radha, and who appears with her resplendent golden complexion. And in the beginning of Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita, Kaviraj Goswami describes that Swarup Damodar Goswami prayed that Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, the crest jewel of avatars, is giving what no other avatar has ever given. He's giving us entrance into the conjugal love affairs of Radha and Krishna. That's right at the very beginning of Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita. So here is Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Prabhupada, foremost teacher of Lord Chaitanya's message and bestower of his grace. And he's reading the first canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. How Krishna is the cause of all causes, and how he's supreme, and the difference between Maya and devotion. Because unless we have foundational understanding of what is the soul, the jiva, what is this material nature, and how Maya is captivating and distracting everyone, how to free ourselves from the subtlest element of material nature, the false ego. Because the false ego is so powerful. It's the weapon of all weapons of Maya. Even in the name of making spiritual advancement. Even in the name of being a devout follower of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. if we're not extremely careful, we will be deluded, diverted, distracted, and our lives will be very wasted because we fall under the dictations of our false ego. So here is this crest jewel of all Vedic literatures. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, Prabhupada, he declared, and Srila Prabhupada repeated him, every syllable of every word of the Srimad Bhagavatam is filled with Krishna's grace. And the culmination of Srimad Bhagavatam is Sri Radha's infinite love for Krishna. How to present these teachings from the very beginning in a setting that we understand the way to hear. We are coming to today's verse, which is describing the glory of Maharaj Parikshit. We find when he was a little embryo in the womb of his mother, Uttara, the crisis that he experienced. His father, Abhimanyu, was the son of Krishna's sister, Subhadra. And she was married to Arjuna. Abhimanyu was only 16 years old, but he was so eager to help his uncles, Yudhisthira, Bhima, Nakula, Sahadev, and his father Arjuna to fight this battle. Nothing could keep him away. And he was the son of Arjuna. He was really empowered. Nobody could defeat him. But he really risked his life to go into a very difficult circumstance. And the Kurus, they understood the only way we could rid him is we have to cheat. We have to break the codes of Kshatriyas. And they made a whole circle of Maharatis, the most powerful warriors of the Kuru dynasty, surrounding him and simultaneously shooting arrows and fighting him. And for a while he was actually winning against everybody. But eventually he got tired. And he was killed in such a ruthless, unfair way. When the news came to Subhadra, his mother, how she cried. And Yudhisthira, Bhima, Nakula, Sahadev, and Arjuna, they were all his fathers. They all loved him like their own child. They cried. Of course, Subhadra's crying was a mother's tears, and Arjuna's crying was a Kshatriya's tears. He had the same broken heart, but his tears were like ghee on the fire of his anger to avenge. Because part of being a Kshatriya is justice. Justice must be established. So he vowed, if I do not kill Jayadratha, who was the person who actually did the final killing of Abhimanyu, by the sunset tomorrow, I will enter fire. Krishna said, Arjuna, why did you make such a vow? I didn't, I need you. So Krishna had to compensate, and that's a beautiful Mahabharata story of how Krishna compensates. But after the battle of Kurukshetra and Yudhishthira was coronated as king, Ashwatthama, he killed all the sons of Draupadi. She had a son from each of the Pandavas while they were sleeping. And at that time, dynasties had a succession plan of children. They were especially trained and empowered to rule with Dharma. So Yudhishthira Maharaj and the Pandavas, they really had no concern with just ruling the world. They just wanted to please Krishna and help every living being to know and love Krishna. But as soon as a child of theirs was capable, they were very enthusiastic to just go to the mountains and do their bhajan. The sole surviving descendant of the Pandavas was this little child in the womb of Uttara. Because before the battle, Abhimanyu put his seed into his wife Uttara. For those of you who are parents, you know, and when you have a child, when you get the news, it's quite exciting. We just can't wait. We're going to have a baby and carry on our family. I once met a sannyasi, and he told me he had, I believe it was 18 brothers and sisters from the same mother and father. He said when he was a little boy, when his family would have dinner, they didn't have so much money, so they just lived in a small place on the ground floor. When they would have dinner, if somebody walked by and saw through the window, everyone sitting and eating, the people would come in, sit down, and ask for a menu. Because they thought it must be a restaurant. So no. The mother would say, no, these are all my children. It looks good. Could I join you tonight? But the sannyasi told me, he was one of the youngest too. You know, all of his brothers and sisters, they all got married, they all had children. There was dozens and dozens of grandchildren and great-grandchildren, and he took sannyas. And his parents were outraged. How dare you insult us by not giving us grandchildren? And that's us. We could imagine the whole kingdom who honored Yudhishthira Maharaj. Srila Prabhupada describes Yudhishthira Maharaj, he accepted that the kingdom belonged to Krishna. Nothing is mine. I'm just a devotee of Krishna. And aham bija pradapita. Krishna is the father and the mother of every living entity of all species of life. If Krishna is going to make me a leader, that means he's entrusting me with the care and the protection and the spiritual upliftment of every living being. Krishna is entrusting me with the care of his own children. Praja. So Yudhisthira Maharaj, on behalf of Krishna, took the role of loving every living entity like a father loves a child. And because he was giving that love, the people loved him with the same trust and faith. And they received shelter from their leader as he was their own mother and father. That's how he ruled. So could you imagine how sacred is this child in the womb of Uttara? He's the sole surviving descendant of all the Pandavas, including Yudhisthira. It wasn't just Uttara and Draupadi and Kunti and the Pandavas who felt such deep concern for the well-being of this child. But all the pious people in the world, they loved the king. How much they loved his only descendant, who was to be entrusted with the care of the whole planet. Ashwatthama was so deluded by anger and arrogance. And actually, if Ashwatthama had access to internet today, he would make such a convincing case how whatever he did was right. It was actually Dharma. Because his father, Dronacharya, was actually killed in a very unfair way too. At least that was his perspective. He was sitting in meditation. But just Arjuna slayed him. So he was really mad. And he was justified. He's the son of Drona. Can you imagine? Drona was a Brahmin who was also a guru of Kshatriyas. So can you imagine how Drona's only child was trained in knowledge and Vedas and fighting and everything else? So he felt justified. He sent Brahmastra. Not like the Brahmastra in the old days of ISKCON when we got sick and we were told. Does everybody know about Brahmastra? Giriraj Maharaj, you remember? Yes. It was, I think, like water boiled with many, many broken up chili peppers and cayenne pepper and a whole big dose of ginger. And for flavor, there may have been some lemon put in it. Something like that, yes. But it was like that. And within ISKCON history, I think Srila Prabhupada first inaugurated something like that to help with a cold or sore throat or, but where I was from, they made it so strong. So strong. And if you were too sick to get up for Mangalarti or too sick for work, then you had to take Brahmastra. So people would just perform the tapasya of getting up and doing their service, even when they were really sick, because the Brahmastra usually didn't make you better. It just it's very torturous. But maybe it made you better sometimes. We had faith in it. But, that idea comes from Brahmastra, the weapon. And Srila Prabhupada describes in purport, it had the power and potency of a nuclear bomb. Today's nuclear bombs. But it was so controlled by this mystic yoga power. You can shoot a nuclear weapon bigger than the atom bomb, more destructive, and it could pinpoint only have effect where you want it to be. So Ashwatthama, can you imagine the excellence of this man's skills? He sipped water, chanted a mantra, created a Brahmastra, and it was going to go into the womb of Uttara to kill the embryo without harming the mother. What to speak of anyone else. When he yielded this Brahmastra, it was in the sky, it lit up all directions. And Arjuna was, what to do? This is my guru's son. What has he done? The Brahmastra entered into the womb. And the little child, Parikshit, the little baby, he saw the Brahmastra coming to him, death personified. And he saw the Paramatma in his heart come into the womb. And by his own powers, he neutralized the Brahmastra. Parikshit saw it all. Krishna came and restored his life and saved him. Uttara, a true loving mother, the only child she could ever possibly have, because her husband was dead. When she saw the Brahmastra flying toward her, she was crying out to Krishna. What could she do? We read about Draupadi when she was being humiliated in the assembly of Kurus. And nobody was helping her. She cried out, "Hey Krishna, hey Govinda," in total helplessness, and Krishna saved her. That's a very well-known story. But in a very similar way, and in certain ways even more drastic way, Uttara, a Brahma, Dushasana was pulling at Draupadi's sari, and it was going to humiliate her and humiliate her dynasty and her husbands. So she cried out to Krishna in helplessness. Here's Uttara, her only child, the only child of the whole Pandava dynasty about to be killed, and there's nothing she could do about it. She's a simple mother. She cried out to Krishna to save her child. And Krishna appeared and saved the little baby. And all he did is, Parikshit Maharaj just saw Krishna for that one moment. He just, actually, Gopi, and yesterday he brought me to the, and is it Kishori? The Nitya Kishori Devi and so many others brought me to this TKG Academy event last night. It was very, very wonderful. It was just really beautiful, and thank you all for doing that wonderful service. And you know, our educational system really does need to be based on this principle of genuine loving care for our children. And really, you know, being like Uttara for these children, giving our lives to protect them, to nourish them, and to help them to be happy in Krishna consciousness. So thank you for somehow or other convincing me to be there. So Uttara is crying and praying, and Krishna's hearing her prayers, and Krishna's seeing the desperation of the little child. And for that one moment, Parikshit has darshan of Krishna. He was so attracted. It was actually wonderful. The most disastrous crisis imaginable became the greatest blessing to humanity. Because in that moment that Krishna had to come to save Parikshit, Parikshit had darshan of Kalachandji. Who is all attractive. And after seeing Krishna and being completely overwhelmed by Krishna's love and mercy and compassion, Parikshit Maharaj surrendered. You know, Prahlad was 5 and he was surrendering. Parikshit was, but Prahlad also surrendered in the womb of his mother just by hearing Narada Muni's Bhagavad Katha. So here is Parikshit when he's born. He's just looking for Krishna everywhere. Nothing could replace his search for Krishna in his life. And he was brought up. Kunti was there like a grandmother. And Yudhisthira, Arjuna, Bhima, Nakula, Sahadev, Draupadi, all of these great personalities, what to speak of all the rishis and sages who were blessing him. What a wonderful upbringing. And as soon as he was old enough, when Yudhisthira Maharaj received the news from Arjuna that Krishna had left the world, they coronated Parikshit Maharaj as the king and departed. They left their palaces, they left their royal robes, they left their fame, their power, their influence, their position, they left everything altogether to enter into the wilderness, just to focus their hearts and souls in remembering Krishna. So now Parikshit Maharaj, he has the strength, the power, and the loving devotion of his father and uncles, and he's ruling the world. And this chapter today is describing how he was so compassionate and so powerful that no one could stand against him. And he was the loving servant of all beings to protect the innocent and administrate justice to the wicked. So here we find in this chapter, there's a cow and a bull. Who are being brutally abused by Kali personified, who actually assumed the role of a powerful king who was actually protecting the world. There's a lot of symbolism in this story. Kali personified assumed the guise of a heroic king. Can you imagine what he must have looked like? We know the power of Kali. Here he is personified. And he's especially focused on causing harm to the cow and the bull, causing them to be trembling in pain, crippled. He's torturing them. He's about to kill them. The bull represents Dharma. And the cow represents Mother Earth, represents the mother. Krishna had just left the earth. As we told, before Yudhisthira Maharaj had departed, Krishna had already ended his earthly pastimes. He brought all the residents he came from Dwarka and went to Vrindavan and brought all the residents either to Goloka Vrindavan or placed them in the aprakat lila, beyond material perception. So there was no more Brijavasis that could be seen. and all the people of Dwarka. He created that conflict, and then Dwarka was unmanifesting. So Krishna was gone. And Srimad Bhagavatam tells, after Krishna left, it was already Kali Yuga, but Kali could have no influence. Kali Yuga actually began when Krishna left this planet. But Kali could do nothing as long as Parikshit Maharaj was king. That was his power. And Parikshit Maharaj literally was Trinadapi Sunichenga. He was more humble than a blade of grass. But yet, he performed his duty with such excellence. Totally courageous. So when Kali wanted to strike, he did it in such a way that Krishna, yada yada hi dharmasya glanirbhavati bharata, he descends to show his supreme compassion to the world. And in his Krishna's Tu Bhagavan Swayam, the origin and crescendo of all incarnations is Krishna. And how does he spend his days in Vrindavan? He's a Gopa. He's protecting the cows and the bulls. He's Govinda. Govinda means one who gives pleasure to the cows. He's Gopala, one who protects the cows. He's Govardhana, one who nourishes the cows. His planet is Goloka, the planet of cows. He's Gopinatha. He's the Lord, he's the lover of those who take care of cows. He's Gopalasya Priya. He's the beloved of those who are cowherd boys. Prabhupada, he said, Krishna plays his flute to give pleasure to the cows, and Balaram holds the plow to represent agriculture. And the basis of agriculture in those natural days was the bull. The bull represents the principles of Dharma, and the cow represents that motherly compassion. How wonderful. Krishna comes to this world, and in his highest, most attractive pastimes, not only he and Krishna and Balaram and Srimati Radharani, she's the supreme beloved Gopi, and Krishna's mother's a Gopi, and Krishna's father's a Gopa. The whole community is dedicated around cows and bulls. So when Kali wanted to begin the attack, he came by destroying the very basis of Vedic culture, represented by the cow and the bull. It wasn't just the cow and the bull he was hurting. It was an attack to the entire Dharma of civilization. Now, for an ordinary person, they would see this and say, you know, it could be worse what he's doing. But Parikshit Maharaj saw it for what it was. He felt profound compassion for this individual cow and bull who were loved so much by Krishna as all. But he also felt profound compassion for all living entities because Kali was striking at the very basis of Dharma. Parikshit Maharaj, in his compassion and surrender to the will of Krishna, to protect Krishna's children in this world, he drew his sword, was angry as fire. Now we look around the world today and we see the influence of Kali. Quarrel and hypocrisy. Actually, the Srimad Bhagavatam gives quite comprehensive lists of the symptoms of what Kali will do to destroy Dharma, to cause people pain and suffering. I remember at New Vrindavan in 1976 when Srila Prabhupada came one day, he was very ill. So he didn't come out to the garden where he would meet devotees and speak for a couple hours every evening. He stayed and the devotees came to the house and Pradyumna Prabhu told everybody that Srila Prabhupada's too ill today, he can't come. So we were all going away, and then Pradyumna Prabhu came back and said, actually Prabhupada wants to see all of you so much, come into his room. Because it was kind of cold out. And Prabhupada was very ill, physically. And we were all sitting on the floor, and Srila Prabhupada was sitting just like Giriraj Swami is now, in a little elevated place. And of course I was down on the floor at that time. I didn't have to give class. And it was just devotee, we were having a very soft kirtan. And then Srila Prabhupada told Pradyumna Prabhu, read from 12th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. So he brought this, Jananivas Prabhu ki jai. Amazing, amazing, such a blessing. Pradyumna Prabhu began to read the symptoms of Kali Yuga. And each thing he said, Srila Prabhupada became so compassionate to us because everything that was being predicted was unfolding right before our eyes. And Srila Prabhupada, even though he was so ill, he was giving little explanations. I remember one of the symptoms that Pradyumna Prabhu read was people will consider someone beautiful by growing their hair long. And Srila Prabhupada said, yes, you see, Vyasadeva was Trikalagya. He was seeing the future. Vyasadeva compiled these 5,000 years ago. At that time, there was no hippie movement. But Vyasadeva could see today the coming of the hippie movement. It was wonderful. But the summary of when you take all the explanations of the miserable situations of Kali Yuga, when it's condensed into 2 words, it's the age of quarrel and hypocrisy. And when you condense it into 1 word, Srila Prabhupada will often say Kali Yuga is the age of quarrel. And I remember Srila Prabhupada in one talk, he said, Kali Yuga, everyone wants to fight. They are just looking for any opportunity to fight. And Prabhupada said, if you touch my hair, I will fight you. I guess that's why we have shaved heads. But any excuse, because there's such a dissatisfaction in the heart. And everything is destroyed by this, I, me, and mine. And actually the only solution to this quarrelsome is to understand we're not these bodies, we're the eternal soul. To understand our own relation to Krishna and others' relation to Krishna. To understand Sarva Loka Maheshwaram, the world belongs to Krishna. In fact, just this morning, I was listening to a recording. Srila Prabhupada was speaking in Jananivas, Switzerland. And he was saying that the perfection of the United Nations will be when the day comes when the whole world is one nation, knowing that the earth belongs to God. And respecting and honoring each other as God's children, without all of these designations. Prahlad Maharaj told that if we forget this Bhagavad Dharma, if we forget being conscious of Krishna, if we forget that we're not friends and enemies, we're children of God, that any solution we make to the problems of the world will only, in due course of time, create bigger problems than the original problem. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu came in the age of Kali, and he taught method of Sankirtan, not just sitting in a cave individually isolated from everybody else, but he taught the process of everybody coming together and finding unity in chanting Radharani and Krishna's names together. Harinam Sankirtan. Last night I was called out early, but for the moments I was there listening to Madhava Prabhu's steady, heartfelt, pure devotional kirtan. And sing how it just goes right into the heart and the soul, and how it inspires people. And when we unite in the chanting of Krishna's name, in the service spirit of pleasing Krishna, and humbling ourselves, as Lord Chaitanya taught, to take shelter of the Lord, then all of our reasons for quarreling, they may still be there. But we can do it with respect and honor and love rather than trying to hurt each other. So quarrel personified was about to take over the world. And Parikshit Maharaj stopped him. When he drew his sword and glanced at Kali, Kali came down from his position. He trembled in fear, and he surrendered to Maharaj Parikshit. He didn't surrender his will, he surrendered his physical position. And Parikshit Maharaj, he's in previous verse, Parikshit Maharaj, thus, because Kali wanted some place to live, because I am what I am, can't change me, but give me some place. And Parikshit Maharaj, knowing the will of Krishna, thus petitioned by the personality of Kali, gave him permission to reside in places where gambling, drinking, illicit sex, prostitution, and animal slaughter were performed. Kali responded, as long as you're king, these places don't exist. Because people are satisfied. You are ruling with such dharma, people are happy. And when people are happy, they understand that these things cause unhappiness. And if somebody is unhappy, they know they can't do these things because not only the knowledge that Parikshit Maharaj is disseminating everywhere through the protecting of Brahminical culture, but also the laws were all pervading. And only the most wicked people would be afraid of the law. Everybody else would be totally protected. So Kali said, they don't exist. I'm surrendering to you. Give me some place. The king gave him permission to live where there is gold. Because wherever there is gold, there is also falsity, intoxication, lust, envy, and enmity. I remember, and it's time to end the class, I'm sorry if I'm over time. A devotee inquired from Srila Prabhupada that it seems like gold is so bad that wherever there's gold, there will be all of these corruptions and contamination, lust, envy, and enmity, wherever there's gold. And in one place it describes in the scriptures that a self-realized person sees gold as yellow stool. And Srila Prabhupada gives a purport. He says, when you have jaundice, that's what happens. You get yellow stool. So the devotee asked, why do we put gold on the deities? How could we put yellow stool on Radharani and Krishna? And why would we cover them with lust and envy and enmity and intoxication and falsity? Brought together like a little ocean of devotees to share with one another the prime benediction for all humanity. And just nearby we have His Holiness Jai Patak Swami Maharaj, who will also become. His love for Srila Prabhupada and compassion to Srila Prabhupada is beyond any impediments. Spreading the glories of Srila Prabhupada and Krishna and Radharani's compassion. He will be there also. Get her. And Jananivas, Prabhu. If I begin talking about my appreciation and surrender to the qualities of Jananivas Prabhu, I'll have to start a whole new class. He's the embodiment of Srila Prabhupada's complete dedication to the deities of the Lord. He is the presiding pujari who has taught by his life the loving devotion and complete surrender to the deity in Srila Prabhupada's service. And his Vaishnava qualities, to the degree we recognize and worship, we will be blessed. So such an assembly of wonderful souls and so many more will be there to be chanting the holy names together. In this ocean of faults of Kali, in today's world, how much quarrel and hypocrisy is there? How many faults are there? Wars, racism, abuse, corruption, sins, crimes. The list is beyond our ability to even fathom. So there's good reason to be depressed. there's good reason to be, what to speak of all the diseases. We just had COVID-19, the world was locked down. But at the same time, cancer is increasing and heart disease is increasing and so many other kinds of diseases. There's malaria. And the more we treat diseases, the more complications come that are not treatable. It's Kali Yuga. What to speak of, just getting along in a family together. Everything is so difficult in Kali Yuga. The divisions of politics, the hatred and fighting over almost any subject. It used to be like we'd have disagreements about subjects, but now there's like disagreements. It becomes like a war, and enemies, and distrust, and hate, all over the world. And unless we're very serious, it comes within our own movement. So yes, there's every reason to become very distraught and give up, and lose our enthusiasm, and just be depressed. Because when you think of, we are plunged right in the middle of an ocean of faults. We have, for every reason, we should be depressed. But there's one benediction. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Sri Nityananda Prabhu have descended. And Srila Prabhupada has come as their representative to give the full blessings. And what is that blessing? That Krishna is in his holy names. And destruction of everything and death is inevitable in this world, whether it comes this way or that way. But if Krishna is pleased with us as we chant his holy names, we are given the supreme essence of perfection. And for the little time we're alive in this world, we have the supreme blessing of being able to share this prime benediction with each other and with the world. So that is why the orchestration, Parikshit was cursed to die in 7 days. Because as long as he's here, Kali can't do his thing, as they say. So it was actually, Parikshit made a mistake. He was a good man, but he did make a mistake. He put that dead snake on Samigrishi. But considering his whole life of service, that mistake was, could be atoned for, but it was not that much. But he was cursed to die in 7 days for that mistake. And Parikshit Maharaj as a devotee, Tatenu Kampam Sasamikshamanadu. Certainly he loved his family, he loved his citizens, he loved his service. But if this is the will of the Lord, I accept it. He didn't want to, he could have punished Shringi, the boy who cursed him. But he didn't. He just, if Shringi did it to somebody else, he would have punished him. But because it came upon him, he was just like he saw Krishna in the womb come to protect him. He's now seeing Krishna coming to the womb, coming into his life to protect him in another way. Such a vision. He saw being cursed to die in 7 days. Krishna was protecting him again. That was his faith in Krishna. He went to the bank of the Ganga. That place is still there between Delhi and Kurukshetra. It's called Sukatala. The place where Sukadev Goswami spoke Srimad Bhagavatam to Parikshit Maharaj. So this is the setting for the Srimad Bhagavatam. The urgency of Parikshit Maharaj to hear. What is the supreme dharma for all humanity? What is the duty of every human being? And what is the prime duty for a person who's about to die, which includes everyone? Srila Prabhupada often said, Parikshit Maharaj knew he had 7 days, but there's not a person in this world who knows that they have 7 minutes. How serious he's teaching us. And it was in that crisis that Parikshit Maharaj taught us how to hear Srimad Bhagavatam. And it was in that situation that Sukadev Goswami was empowered by all the sages and rishis and by Srimati Radharani and Sri Krishna to speak the crest jewel of all Vedic literatures and describe the beautiful pastimes of Vrindavan, culminating in Sri Krishna leaving everything and everyone to receive the loving service of Sri Radha. And Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is Krishna manifesting the loving service of Sri Radha. Radha Bhava Duti Subalitam Nomi Krishna Swaram. And Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he and his followers, they emphasized and personified the Srimad Bhagavatam. The followers of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, for many generations, unlike any other sampradaya, they did not write commentaries of Vedanta Sutra. All their commentaries were Srimad Bhagavatam, primarily, because this is Vyasadev's commentary of Vedanta Sutra. But for the service of the reputation of our sampradaya, eventually Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, who was extraordinary embodiment and teacher of the Srimad Bhagavatam, he blessed his disciple Baladev Vidyabhushan to write the Govinda Bhasya commentary of. He wrote his commentary of the Vedanta Sutra in a way to explain the Srimad Bhagavatam. And when Srila Prabhupada was going to come to the world, how did he prepare? He prepared in Radha Damodar Temple by beginning his translations and purports to the Srimad Bhagavatam. And when he boarded the Jaladuta came around India to the southern coast of Kanyakumari and came up the western coast to Cochin. And actually, a few years ago, I was walking along the coast in Cochin, and I came upon something. I didn't know it was going to be there. It was a big, beautiful monument right at the docks where Srila Prabhupada's boat. And it was a monument in honor of Srila Prabhupada. The Jaladuta docked in Cochin, and that was the place that all the Srimad Bhagavatams were brought on board. He carried Srimad Bhagavatam. Besides his japamala and maybe an umbrella, that was all he had that he brought to the West. And what is the culmination of Srimad Bhagavatam? Srila Prabhupada begins the Bhagavatam, the introduction, with the life of Lord Chaitanya, summary of his life. Because Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and his associates personified, embodied the teachings, the spirit and the love that Krishna revealed through Srimad Bhagavatam. And how did Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu personify that? By the character of his devotees and by giving the gift of Krishna's holy names. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Hare Ram. Yes, please.
In Prabhupada's purports, he's speaking about how the age of Kali is quarrel and hypocrisy, but he also says falsity. So is that a different point that Prabhupada's trying to make to us? And then ask the second question.
Well, falsity is just one on a long list. Just in this paragraph it says falsity, intoxication, lust, envy, and enmity. Enmity is quarrel. But not just quarrel. Enmity is quarrel with a viciousness in our hearts. Sometimes, the gopis quarrel with Krishna. And Radharani quarrels with Krishna, and Yashodamai quarrels with Krishna. And under Govardhan Hill, Madhu Mangala and Yashodamai were quarreling. And so quarreling in and of itself, when it's for the pleasure of Krishna or in the service of Krishna, as well-wishers, is devotional service. When we're well-wishers of each other, we may have disagreements and quarrel, but we're still well-wishers. But this word enmity, when there's actually a viciousness, a hatred, a disrespect, and we quarrel, from that place, whatever name we call it, it's the energy of Kali. So falsity is one of these. And falsity can be described on so many levels. Srila Prabhupada, sometimes he translated Maya as that which is not. So Maya is all about falsity. Thinking this body is falsity. Thinking I'm superior to another because of my body is falsity. Thinking that this money is going to bring me happiness is falsity. thinking that getting fame is going to give me satisfaction is falsity. Basically, when we forget the nature of the soul and how Krishna is the proprietor, mother, and father of everything that exists, then everything in our life is based on falsity. And Kali uses all of these techniques to keep us in forgetfulness. But in Navadvip Dham, there's that place Simantadvip, where Parvati is worshipping Lord Chaitanya because she saw Lord Shiva chanting his name so enthusiastically. And when Lord Chaitanya comes, she says, she said, I take the form of Durga or Maya to keep everybody away from you. And Lord Chaitanya said, actually, your energy is the same as Radharani, who's my best devotee. But you are Maya, to separate from Krishna, but actually it is ultimately for the cause of bringing people to the understanding how they need to take shelter of Krishna. And that was the purpose Lord Chaitanya was coming in this age of Kali. Does that answer your question?
Yes, very much so. And my second question was, you were describing how gold is sacred when it's used for the pleasure of the Lord. So for the ladies, I'm not so pure, but so should the ladies wear silver instead?
You know better than me. There's no difference of silver and gold if we're using it for selfish purposes. And at the same time, silver and gold, whether we wear it ourselves or offer it to the deities or put it on, if you go to Tirupati, the dome of the temple is gold. That's a lot of gold. But it's attracting the world to come to see the beauty and receive the mercy of Krishna. So the gopis wore gold, but they did it because they wanted to be beautiful for Krishna, not for they had no vanity. They just wanted everything. When Krishna sees us, let us make him happy. So it's a matter of consciousness. When it's in service, anything is sacred. Bhagavad Gita, Krishna tells that an enlightened person sees a pebble and gold with same vision. Actually, for a devotee, when we see a little stone from Govardhan Hill, that's infinitely more precious than gold. Or even a little stone from a pathway somewhere in the forests of Vrindavan. We put it on our altar. So it's how we see. We can see a pebble and we can see gold in relation to Krishna or in relation to our false ego. And that's what actually makes it sacred or not sacred. As far as what ladies wear. I just bow down whatever you wear. Giriraj Maharaj, would you like to speak some words? Words of wisdom on any subject?
Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Maharaj. Thank you for being so tolerant and kind to your little brother. Thank you. Jananivas, Prabhu, would you like to speak some words?
Hare Krishna. In the Chaitanya Charitamrita, describing the Panchatattva, 5 features of Panchatattva, and he said how the Panchatattva came and established the Sankirtan mission. They danced, they laughed, they cried, they stumbled, and like this, the whole universe became full of Krishna consciousness. And Prabhupada said, but factually we didn't see that happen. We didn't see that happen. But he said that they set in motion. They set in motion the Sankirtan movement. And following in that same momentum, the International Society for Krishna Consciousness, and that same momentum is spreading Krishna consciousness all over the world. So that we are seeing now is coming true, especially in Mayapur. I mean, you go to Mangalartik and it's packed up, the temple is packed up. That means they've taken baths, some will even go and take bath in Ganga before. And practically the whole day, the Bhoga Artis, Sandhya Arti, they're loving you. See, everyone is coming, dancing, chanting. Especially the night, it's attracting the middle class Bengalis. When we first began in Mayapur, well, no one was coming anyway. If they did, they were just local people. But now you see this nice second class, which Ramakrishna described as they like blue devotees, the Bengalis, because underneath they're Gauranga Bhaktas. But anyway, we see it's all these activities of the Panchatattva and their mission was started, and how Prabhupada skillfully following in that same momentum. The International Society of Krishna Consciousness is spreading, so here is a nice gathering of such devotees. How it's happening here. It's a temple. It's here. You could build one next door, and your neighbour could build one next door. Your next neighbour. It's possible because here you were showing. So all these little temples all around the world. The next door neighbours, they could do exactly the same thing. So, yeah. So especially in Bengal, especially in the Mayapur Chandaloya Mandir, we see it's happening. Thousands of people literally flocking. It's just a matter of time before it comes to Kalachandri's temple and devotees. That guy will come and we'll all be dancing, chanting, we'll all be in ecstasy. It will be something very practical. Thank you for expanding the mission, Maharaj. Maharaj is Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna.
Thank you very much.
Shri Radhanath Swami Maharaj ki, Shri Radh Swami Maharaj ki, Shri Jananivas Prabhu ki, Shri Gaura Bhakta Vrinda ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Shri Radha Kalachanji ki jai, Jai Gaur Premanandi.